to Lunchtime Politics on Channels Television. I'm Kayode Okikiolu here in Lagos. But first, the big political stories making the rounds at this hour. FCT Minister Wike revokes the land ownership certificates of former President Buhari, House Speaker Abass, SGF Akume, and 759 other prominent figures and organizations for alleged non-payment of certificate of occupancy. And for the second time in less than a week, another court grants former governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, 500 million naira bail in a money laundering trial to the tune of 110 billion naira. And it's an early Christmas gift, it will seem, from Dangote Refinery Limited to petrol users as the company announces slash in its PMS price to 899 naira. We'll begin with the big story coming from the nation's capital, where the minister of the FCT, Wike, has revoked the certificates of lands belonging to former President Muhammadu Buhari, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abass, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Senator George Akume, and 759 other prominent figures and organizations in Maitama 2, Abuja, for non-payment of certificate of occupancy. This was contained in a publication by the Federal Capital Territory Administration and made available to Channels Television by the Special Advisor to the FCT Minister, Mr. Larry Olayinka. In a separate publication, the Minister also threatens to revoke lands belonging to the Minority Leader of the House of Representatives, Kingsley Chinda, former President of the Senate, Yocha Ayu, and Ame Bute, the Chief Whip of the Senate, Tahir Munguno, and 610 others, if outstanding fees owed to the FCTA for certificate of occupancy are not paid within 2 weeks. This revocation by the minister comes months after he made several pleas to residents of the FCT, particularly those residing in hybrid areas of the nation's capital, to pay outstanding fees owed to the FCTA or risk revocation of their land. And to the courts now, where Justice Marian Anene of the Federal Capital Territory High Court has granted the former governor of Kogi State, Mr. Yahaya Bello, bail in the sum of 500 million naira, with 3 sureties in like sum. On December the 10th, Justice Anene had refused the ex-governor's bail application, saying it was filed prematurely. While delivering the initial ruling, she said, having been filed when the first defendant was neither in custody nor before the court, the instant application was incompetent. There was, however, room for the former governor's lawyers, to file a fresh application for bail and apply for hearing date. The former governor is facing an alleged money laundering trial to the tune of 110 billion naira, along with 2 others. On December the 13th, another judge, Justice Emeka Wite of the Federal High Court, Abuja, had granted him bail in the sum of 500 million naira, this time in the 80 billion naira alleged money laundering case instituted against him by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC. So 2 bails in less than a week. Lots of questions. Perhaps to get some more insight into this, we're joined by Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Kayode Adilola. He joins us virtually on the program. You're welcome to Lunchtime Politics, Senior Advocate.
Thank you for having me.
So let's get right into what might seem confusing for some people. For the second time in less than a week, former Governor Yahaya Bello has been granted bail. One case involving 80 billion naira, the other, this one, 110 billion naira. 2 separate courts, similar cases, it would seem, similar bail amount, at least. What exactly is going on? Because for some, they might seem, how about you harmonize these cases rather than have 2 cases at different courts? But you have the legal perspective. Speak to us, Senior Advocate. What exactly is going on?
Well, when the criminal matter comes before a court, the court sees of the matter, looks at it as he finds appropriate in accordance with the law and takes decisions in accordance with the provisions of the law. Here we have a situation where the former governor has been charged to courts in two different courts. And the two different judges who have the files before them have dealt with the matter as they deem fit. Now, you may talk about the administrative part of it. Maybe the prosecutors should, like you said, harmonize these charges and bring them forth before the court. But then again, if the facts are remarkably different, if the circumstances are also remarkably different, and the figures are also different, they go before different courts. Now, if you have, therefore, a defendant before the court and he applies for bail, he gets bail. Now, let me put you in perspective. Assuming that the cases were remarkably different, and here we have somebody charged before a court for stealing, and in another court is charged in another court for another crime. And at the end of the day, he's convicted in one court, and in the second court is also convicted. Then the question you ask yourself is, how will his time in prison run? Will he finish with one first and then commence another? Now, in this situation where you have bail applications properly filed before the respective courts and bail applications have been taken, I think it's in order for the courts to simply grant the bail if they find it, because then again, what's the basis for granting bail? That the accused person or the defendant will not escape, will not tamper with witnesses or tamper with evidence, or he's not likely to commit another crime and all that. So if there's a harvest of bails, well, let the defendant go home and comply with the requirements of the bill, because there again, he has conditions he must fulfill. But then, like you said, I think if there's a possibility of the prosecution looking at these cases and seeing how they can be harmonized, it will be tidier so that it doesn't seem, and I want to use this word very carefully, that the ex-governor is being persecuted.
It's a very interesting one because a lot of people had looked at this case from the inception. Lots of controversy first about his arrest with the EFCC. So this is a case that started off with controversy. So seeing what is playing out in the courts, some might begin to look at it with some sort of cynicism. And I'll explain. This case, for example, he was granted bail last week, as I said earlier on, before Justice Wike. Today, he's been granted bail before Justice Marian Anini, 500 million naira. The first one with three sureties. The first one with two sureties. This with three sureties. First, I want you to explain to us, those bail conditions have to be met separately, am I correct? And if he's able to meet them, would he get his freedom, or is there still some sort of concurrence in this case? Can he use the same sureties that he presented in one court? Can he use those same sureties in another court if those conditions are the same? I hope you get what I mean.
I like the last phrase you used, if the conditions are the same. If the judge examines the conditions and considers what he has presented, and the judge finds that the conditions have been met, then the bail conditions would have been met, and then he's allowed to go home. But then again, I do not think our courts can be totally oblivious of the fact that there are cases in other courts and there are situations which are synonymous with what they have before them. And I think also the counsel appearing before them also have a responsibility to bring those.
Well, we'll try to get back to Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Kayode Adelola, who's trying to help us understand the intricacies in this case instituted. In fact, cases against former Governor Yahaya Bello. Senior Advocate, I understand you're back. Please go ahead with the point you were making.
Yes, so the point is that if, therefore, he has fulfilled the condition and the judges are satisfied, that's it. It will be different, however, if it's brought before the court that someone who stood shortly for him to the tune of 500 million in one case somewhere else is also standing short, and the judge feels this surety may not be able to meet the bail the consequences if this defendant escapes. Then she might say, no, I don't want this surety. You've got to present another one who is capable of meeting the conditions, and in the event of your escape, will bear the consequences. But in the circumstances in which we are, if the conditions are presented to the respective judges and they find the conditions met, I believe the bail should be allowed to stand.
There's been that classic debate. Will this be some sort of waste of the judiciary's resources? Some have said, how about you bring the cases together, harmonize it? Some say, well, you have to understand how these cases are, the jurisdictions, the allegations, the charges as well. So how do we understand whether or not cases are a waste of the judiciary's resources and time? Because if you look at the backlog, the Chief Justice of Nigeria had mentioned the backlog before Superior Court. So what are some of the factors that would help us know if this is a waste, if this is something we can easily harmonize, so you can give space for other equally or more important cases?
Well, that's an important question you've asked. But the truth is, I do not think we often quantify the costs to the to government and to judiciary in particular. Often we take cases in our stride. We file one today, withdraw tomorrow, file another one, file a separate, charge sheet, and then we keep going on and on. I agree with you that if there's a possibility of harmonizing these cases, we should. Because don't forget, when these cases are on, whether we like it or not, whether we believe it or not, they have a tendency of polarizing us. There are those who are for, there are those who are against, and until when the decision is made, we're on edge, and people are wondering, is this fair? Is
right.
That application fair? Is the decision also? And so these are things that we should also consider.
Pardon me to come in for a moment there, Senior Advocate. There's still a couple of issues I want to raise. You lined on this point, and then we'll maybe talk about Edo. But we'd like to tell our viewers on DSTV that will be bringing you a live coverage of the groundbreaking of 2,200 police housing units, the police barracks, Obalende, Ikoyi, Lagos. Stay with Channels Television as we bring you that live event. Well, Senior Advocate, please, you can land on that point. It's a very important one. As I said earlier on, the CJN has spoken about that time and again. So maybe land on that point, then we'll talk about the situation in Edo State.
All right. So as I said, it's important that we begin to quantify the cost to government. And that is why I have seen situations where the Supreme Court in particular, and I think it should cascade to the lower courts, making counsel pay for waste of resources and time of the court. And for a criminal matter, such as this one, I think those who are in charge, those who are prosecuting, should see the possibility of reducing time and cost.
All right. This is an ongoing case, but I'm glad you've provided some sort of clarity. There's a lot of work, really, for the judiciary. But I want us to quickly touch on what's going on in Edo State. It's been a long time coming. Edo State politics is quite peculiar. But I'm sure you've been following the Edo State House of Assembly suspending 18 local government council chairmen and their deputies for 2 months with immediate effect. And the Speaker had made that announcement. Now, we understand that the state governor, Senator Monday Bello, has accepted the decision of a state assembly and set up a panel to investigate that suspension. It's a very controversial one, but I'd like us to take a listen to what the governor said, and then we'll come back to look at the issues, particularly the ones that have been raised about the constitutionality or otherwise of this decision. Let's take a listen to the governor.
Local government chairmen to provide their financial statement even after the extended deadline left us with no choice but to take the necessary course of action. Their actions were a clear breach of public trust. To protect the interests of Edo people, we have approved their suspension. This is not just because of our competence. It is about safeguarding integrity in public trust services. As a leader, we must always recognize the welfare and confidence of our people.
Well, Senior Advocate, the chairmen have declared this suspension null. They say that their tenure ends 2026. Of course, their party as well has come out to say no, this is unconstitutional. The law is quite clear. The Supreme Court has made a ruling as well. But when you look at this, Senior Advocate, what do you see, at least from the perspective of a law?
Let's talk about the basics. Section 7 of the Constitution provides excuse me, for the existence of local governments in the respective states. And we are right now going towards giving autonomy to the local governments. In fact, by the law and the pronouncement of the Supreme Court, the local governments now have financial autonomy. And obviously, whoever has financial autonomy invariably has almost 90% political autonomy. In 2021, I think it was, the Supreme Court ruled that the dissolution of the local governments in Oyo State and I think Katsina State by the governors, the state governors, Governor Masari at the time and Governor Sheyi Makinde, was wrong. So if it was wrong then, it is wrong now, especially in situations where the local government chairpersons and councils came in through the ballot box. If people, the citizens, have voted for local government councillors and chairpersons, then the governors cannot remove them. But we have a situation on our hands where governors have become almighty in their respective states. And we must consistently, as long as we can, challenge these things, especially in a situation where, as I said, the local government councillors and chairpersons have been elected. Where the governor says, well, we're dissolving these local government councils in order to have elections into the councils and for the office of local government chairman, we would understand. But to dissolve because you don't want them anymore, I think we should begin to veer away from this kind of situation. And so to that extent, we need elections to hold. I don't think Edo State has held its own elections for local government chairpersons. I know Rivers has, for example. If those gentlemen were put there by the former governor, then elections should take place pronto. That's my position.
Well, it's a very interesting situation we're seeing playing out. I imagine the people of the state just want good governance, right, and ensure they have proper representation. But we have to thank you so much, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Kayode Adulula, for your intervention. I think they've been very precise on the show this afternoon. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for having me too. Thank you.
Well, from politics and governance, judiciary, the rest, we move to the petroleum industry. Dangote refinery says that it has reduced the price of its petrol to 899 naira 50 kobo per litre to provide relief for Nigerians ahead of a Christmas and New Year holiday season. In a statement by the company's spokesman, Anthony Chejina, it says the price reduction is designed to ease transport costs during the festive period. The refinery also said consumers can purchase an additional litre of fuel on credit for every litre bought on a cash basis. The private-owned refinery had in November lowered the price of its petrol to 970 naira per litre. Well, is this a one-off Christmas and New Year gift, or this is a trend we'll begin to see in that industry? Well, we're joined by Mr. Olabode Shomi, who's an oil and gas expert. Joins us live from our Abuja studio. Mr. Shomi, welcome to Lunchtime Politics. Is this a Christmas gift that you're receiving with joy in your heart, or you see more to this?
Well, first of all, I think like every Nigerian, I'm happy at the downward trend. whether it's a Christmas gift or not is not something we can really speculate about, to the extent that we don't know the factors, the corporate indices within the Dangote group that made them to come to that price. Nor are we expected to know, nor should we even really know. So when you look at it from the point of the consumer, he is interested in lower prices. But if you recall, in our previous discussions on this, when the NNPC refinery came on, one of the things that we were able to establish is that as long as you have competition, one of the things that competition will do is to ensure that people get cost-reflective prices. In other words, there won't be too much room for unnecessary exploitation of Nigerians. The second thing that competition does is innovation. In the third thing that it does is better quality in terms of customer service. And those are the trends that we are beginning to see. And we pray and we expect that the NNPC will respond in kind, which probably will mean some kind of lower prices. And at the end of the day, Nigerians will get that cost-reflective price that they so richly deserve.
Because, I mean, a lot of people are saying maybe this is as a result of free market, in quotes, where you see the producers trying to beat themselves in prices, in some sense. But whether or not this is as a result of free market, as you said, is another thing entirely, because we might not understand the intricacies playing out behind the scenes. But you made a very important point, expecting that the NNPC refinery would respond in kind. Last we heard from Petron was that this may be 1,045 naira. At that time, Dangote was selling for 970. So if Dangote has brought it down to 899, or let's just say 900, what would you expect from the NNPC refinery? One, we don't even know their pricing fully yet. It's still something that is in the works. And this was something that Nigerians pressured Dangote to reveal. So what specifically should we be expecting from the NNPCL's refinery now?
I think from the NNPCL, just like from any group, any corporation, there's a turbulence, or should I say a disruption within the market that they are in. So they will go back to the books and see the best way to respond to that turbulence in the market. Let's not forget that they have a company to run and they have a market to respond to. And one of the best things to use to compare this was the old Nitel in terms of their inability to respond to the disruption that was caused by MTN, Econet as they were known then. And their inability to respond appropriately was what led to the demise of Nitel as we knew it. So there is a competition. There is issues that is coming to the NNPC which they have to deal with. So we expect that they will deal with it properly. They will get their proper prices out, and they will deal in it in a way that they will be able to survive and respond to the issue. So at the end of the day, whichever way you look at it, is all positive benefits for Nigerians. Again,
you make a vital point talking about Nigerians. How accessible is Dangote's petrol for Nigerians? I imagine Nigerians don't go around and ask petrol stations, is this Dangote petrol you have? Okay, I need Dangote petrol so I can buy it for 900 or 900 plus. So accessibility is yet another thing. From what we've seen, it will look like some of the associations have pitched their tent with the NNPCL's refinery, and you can see that chummy relationship, perhaps because they had some sort of feisty relationship with Dangote Refinery Limited. So again, how can we ensure that the end user is the one benefiting from this and not at the mercy of the middlemen and women, if you understand what I mean?
I totally get you. So it's about understanding the value chain and, of course, policing the value chain to ensure that it benefits. So what Dangote has done is to do their own bit of the work. They have produced in a price that is most competitive relative to whatever every other party is producing or supplying with. So what it now beholds on Nigerians is to understand the marketers who are responsible for getting the fuel from Dangote and giving it to the final person at the petrol station. So if for any reason they find out that a petrol station collects at a lower price in Dangote and sells at the same price with which it collects from the NNPC, Nigerians have a right to make a protest. Let us not forget that because it is a free market, they can collect it at any price and sell at any price. But it is incumbent upon us, because of the issues that we are facing, because of the necessity for us to benefit from all the things that have been happening, to actually police the process. We cannot just leave everything to the capitalist, because there is capitalistic greed, which is allowed within the free market. So Nigerians need to pay more attention. We need to ask questions to the marketers, and they are the ones that will tell us what percentage of their petrol they get from Dangote, what percentage they import, and what percentage they get from NNPC, and what prices they are selling, or if they are even selling all of them at the same price. Those are things Nigerians should ask, because it's not for NNPC or for Dangote to start to tell Nigerians what is the profit margin of the marketers who are responsible for the last mile.
I think it's also important for the regulators to play their part here and not just play the ostrich. You have the NMDPRA, you have the FCCPC. Ensure that Nigerian consumers are protected at the end of the day and not at the mercy of whatever is playing out there. But on a final note, Mr. Shomi, I want to ask you a trick question. Do you see this as just a Christmas and New Year move? Do you see the prices going up? So we prepare ourselves, okay, and manage our expectations. So should we expect this downward trend to be sustained, or we should just not raise our hopes and expect the unexpected, as they say?
Okay, so if I were privy to the factors that necessitated or that provoked the downward review, I would have been able to make an informed decision. An informed commentary, rather. But I'm not privy to what factors were in there, because there are factors that determine the final price. And if I were privy to it, I could have been able to say, okay, based on these so and so factors, which is likely to be sustainable, this will be likely to happen. But what I can't say is that, given what is happening, irrespective of the factors, I don't see Dangote necessarily increasing the price again, as long as the main factors, price of crude oil, the foreign exchange price, remain the way it is. So because in as much as there's economic issues, there are also political issues to consider.
Indeed. Quickly, we have 10 seconds. Do you expect NNPCL to do maybe 890, 880? Is that something that will be in order?
Well, I can't speak to exact figure, but I expect them to respond in kind. It just makes sense. Otherwise, they'll be facing existential threats.
There you go. Interesting times we're in right now, but we have to thank you so much, Mr. Olabode Shomi, oil and gas expert, CEO, Crabtree Limited, for your time on the program. Of course, look forward to having you back if anything moves. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Well, there you have it. Go over to the filling stations and find out what exactly is going on. But that's where we anchor on the show this afternoon. Thank you for watching. I'm Kayode Okikielu, the Channels Television, for a little breaking news. Goodbye.